Okay, good morning everyone. It's 10:30 and we'll get underway. Welcome to the first Cabinet meeting of 2020. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Malvisi and Councillor Busby.
Okay, thank you. Declarations of interest by councillors. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary in item 8 as I'm a member of the CAB.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, the next item, BCA 1924, to confirm the minutes of the last meeting we had, which was back in November, 7th of November. Just to go through, page 1, page 2, anyone? And finally, page 3. All happy with the minutes? Yep. Thank you. The next item, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received.
Next item, questions by councillors.
None received.
And matters referred by the Overview and Scrutiny or Joint Audit and Standards Committees.
There were none.
Thank you. Moving on then, the next item is the forthcoming decisions list, which you will all have got copies of. Does anyone have anything they wish to say about the items on this? Everyone happy with the forthcoming decisions list? Okay, thank you. Next item then is paper BCA 1925, the 3-year funding for the Sudbury and District Citizens' Advice. And I'd like to ask Councillor Davis to introduce this, please.
Babergh has traditionally helped to fund the CAB at Sudbury and also at Ipswich. Last year at a scrutiny meeting, it was brought up that it would help the CABs, and I use the plural there, Babergh and in other areas, to have a more certain financial future. And a request has been made for us to fund them, guaranteed funding for 3 years. At the moment, we just do it on an annual basis. The CABs have suffered some serious cuts from Suffolk County Council, which was, the slack was picked up a little bit by the Clinical Commissioning Group and ourselves. But it's important for the CABs to have this financial certainty while they look at their own methods moving forward in terms of perhaps streamlining their services, coming together. Suffolk County Council last week approved actually not to cut the whole amount, but to give them £120,000 per year, which obviously helps them. But we know, and I'm sure all members will be aware of the valuable service that the CAB provide for our residents in Babergh and further afield. And whether those people go to Sudbury or to Ipswich, it's a vital service. Therefore, I think the 3-year funding agreement for the Sudbury and District CA, the Citizens' Advice, should be approved, and that the authority be delegated to the Assistant Director of Planning and Communities to sign the agreement following discussion with the Cabinet Member for Communities. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone have any questions or anything they wish to say? Councillor Osborne.
I fully support this report, and I'd actually like to see a 3-year rolling review so that they're guaranteed beyond those 3 years. So I'll be making a recommendation to add that to the current recommendation. The CAB, they really do, as Councillor Davis has just alluded to, they play a real critical role. They're a critical partner for the housing team, who would find it very difficult to manage without their assistance and their support. They're a critical partner for the Shared Revenue Partnership, which provide valuable data, plus day-to-day advice as well. So I fully support this, and I would like to see this report go through and recommendation approved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Tom, I believe you wanted to say something.
Just a point on the recommendation. The recommendation covered under 3.2 will allow for a rolling agreement to be put in place. So the delegation to me with John, we can make that a rolling 3-year agreement.
Does that need to be explicitly stated in the recommendation then?
Sorry, because it's delegated, Tom or whoever would have that authority to be able to do that. And for example, if we wanted it to be inflation linked as well, that would again be delegated power for Tom in discussion with the cabinet, with whoever's the cabinet member for that portfolio at the time. So it's included in 3 points.
Does anyone else have anything?
Sorry I'm late, everybody. Just in addition that the Scrutiny Committee Task and Finish Group met earlier this week, the Scrutiny Committee met yesterday, you will be getting an updated report. It's a bit later than you, and it doesn't affect this year's decision or anything that you're talking about today, but it will be carrying along exactly the lines, as far as this council is concerned and Mid Suffolk's concerned, suggesting a rolling 3-year funding arrangement with provision for inflation. Pretty much exactly the same points. You'll have that for your next cabinet meeting, but it's not complete. But it's only just been agreed that you should get it, if you follow me. That's all. It was just I thought you should know.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks very much for the approach taken by this and Mid Suffolk councils in the matter. It is appreciated.
Thank you. That's very helpful. So I know you met yesterday afternoon, wasn't it? And, does anyone else have?
Yeah. Don't question anyone's wording so far about the valuable service they do provide, and going forward, obviously, we want to maintain that service. I'm just a little bit wary of the commitment in that I'd also like to see the CAB increase their efforts to fund themselves. We're all experiencing difficult times financially, both the county and the district, and as much as we're going to invest in this and it is such a valuable service, I think we do need to see that they are doing all they can to generate their own income, and for those rolling years it is vitally important that we do see that, in that they don't just rely totally on the county and the district councils and almost pull back on what they should be doing. I think it's important that we see some sort of a business plan from them to know what their plans are in that respect. And so long as this rolling contract does come before the Cabinet to get their approval each year, then I don't really have a problem with it as it is. But I just want to see them come to us to show us that they are doing all they can to generate as much income as they can.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I think in addition to that, that they need to demonstrate that they are continually making improvements in efficiencies and internal savings on the cost of delivering the service. Tom, did you want to come back?
Yeah, just wanted to give comfort and confidence, I guess, that the funding agreement that goes to them will require deliverables to be reported back. There will be a monitoring arrangement so that we understand the impact that they're having, the way that they're working. And it's almost kind of business as usual activity for the grants team to continually work with and support all of the organisations that we support financially, to provide them with funding advice to ensure that they are as kind of upskilled as possible in terms of generating their own income, that they are exploring all opportunities to generate from national funders, from local funders, with the CAs in particular. One of the things that we're seeking to stimulate, I know that Sudbury Town Council and Hadley Town Council make contributions to the CAs. Well, they, I think, are seeking to approach all parish councils because, for example, it's not just residents of Sudbury that get advice from Sudbury CA, it's residents across the board. So they are continuing to explore all opportunities for funding, and I know as part of the scrutiny exercise there was a suggestion from Suffolk County Council, for example, that some of what they provide people would be willing to pay for, and therefore should they put charging in. The debate that was had at the Cross Authority Task and Finish was that if you enter the realms of creating a perception that people have to pay for any of the advice that they get from the CAs. That can be really harmful in terms of people feeling it's an organisation that they can go to. So there's some subtlety in terms of what they need to do to generate income, because they need to maintain a public perception that it's kind of all advice is free at the point of use type thing. But they absolutely need to continue to work on efficiencies. They need to look at what they are doing cross-county, to look at their own financial management, for example, how they deliver payroll and some of those back office functions, to see whether they can merge those across CAs across the county. And part of the County Council's funding commitment stimulates that kind of activity. The county have perhaps gone a step further than others would have liked to in terms of encouraging that the County Council would like to see 4 CAs across the entire county. That's not necessarily an aspiration held by all of the individual citizens' advice, and again there's kind of tension between the amount of volunteer effort and support that they get, which is often very locally grounded, and being able to save costs. So if you had 1 CA across Babergh and Mid-Suffolk, for example, you might save costs on managers, but you might lose a lot of volunteers because there wasn't that local ownership of the activity. So again, there's just some subtlety in terms of how they go about managing that, but absolutely ensuring that they are conscious not to become dependent and rely, or to avoid as far as they possibly can dependency on grant funding from external organisations, is something that we will be driving them, and it will be part of the monitoring arrangement that we put in place in terms of the 3-year rolling agreement, that they report back annually and have to meet a set of kind of mutually agreed outcomes.
Thanks, Tom. Councillor Davis.
Yeah, I totally endorse what Tom has said, and he's explained it very well. And I think it is important, because we don't want to be picking up the slack that others are letting go. So it's important that we do that. But I think the 3-year funding actually helps the CAs to plan further ahead, and also to make those cuts where they can, knowing that they've got a little bit more certainty from us. And I also point out that we are, the communities team are carrying out a grants and review for all the grants as well, not just the CAs, to make sure that the money we're given is not just a tick box exercise. It is because people actually need it or deserve it, or it's a requirement that we need to do. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about what Tom has said about funding going forward beyond the 3 years, because I think he said that the agreement will provide for delegated authority to make that decision after the 3 years is up. That implies that the agreement is some sort of formal document rather than just us agreeing to something. And we, of course, haven't got that agreement in front of us that states that. So I don't think that the recommendations that we've got actually cover for beyond 3 years at all, because the recommendations clearly state that a 3-year funding agreement be approved, and that authority be delegated for sign-off of that agreement. So I'm a little bit unclear about what we're actually agreeing to this morning. Are we agreeing, I think, from the recommendation, what we're agreeing to is just simply 3 years funding. And I thought that the question that was asked was, do we have a commitment beyond that 3 years?
Thank you. Tom or Derek?
Yeah, I think the question was, is it a rolling 3 year? And I can understand. I mean, I think we'd be quite comfortable to tweak or add the word rolling in the 3 year, because as it says, it is delegated to Tom at the moment. So if we were to change it and say rolling 3 year, then we could also add in inflation linked and everything like that, and it will just get longer and longer and longer. But at the moment, it's quite clear that it's delegated to Tom. So I mean, if you prefer that we put the word rolling in, I can't imagine that there'd be any objections to that whatsoever. So it's entirely, I'm happy to change, to amend the recommendation to say rolling 3 year.
If I can just be clear, the only reason that I've brought it up is because in the recommendation it says that authority be delegated to Tom with regard to sign off of this agreement. And this agreement at 3.1 is 3 years. So it doesn't appear clear to me. I mean, I accept that Tom has said that it wouldn't actually be like that, it would be something different, but if it's going to be something different, that ought to be what we agree.
So the only thing I would add to that is Michael made the good point about us being able to review it on an annual basis as well. And so this time next year we would say, yeah, we're going to carry on with the 3-year agreement. So, you know, again, and if we put rolling in, we probably wouldn't need to bring it back in a year's time because it would be rolling.
Well, before I make a comment, Councillor Osborne, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I'm just thinking surely the whole idea of the 3-year rolling review is to give confidence to the CAB and members of the public. Bearing in mind this document is in the public domain, we need to give that assurance, and I think by just adding that one word rolling into it, I don't think we need to add any more. We'll give that assurance to both the CAB and to other councillors and to members of the public.
Tom, can you
Yeah,
clarify?
if I can assist, yeah, an amended recommendation that a 3-year rolling funding agreement for the Sudbury and District CA be approved would give that clarity. In terms of the actual agreement, we would still want annual reporting on that basis, so it does give that confidence, but equally it would be remiss of the authority to simply grant a 3-year revenue and, you know, without tracking that on a regular basis, which actually will end up in some kind of formal monitoring on an annual basis, but will probably result in our grants officer going to meet them quarterly to track how they're getting on, how spend is occurring and all those kind of things in the same sort of way that we do with other revenue funded projects. So adding the word rolling into recommendation 3.1, absolutely. It gives transparency, I guess, in terms of what that means.
Thank you, Tom. Councillor Holt.
Can I just be clear that rolling, yes, but the Cabinet will be presented with a presentation each year of an update on where we are with the CAB, with their funding, so that it does come to Cabinet for discussion. Can I just have that confirmed that that will happen? It's not going to be delegated to the Cabinet member and yourself, and we as a Cabinet won't be presented with that. It will just be signed off each year. I just want to make sure it comes back to Cabinet so the Cabinet as a whole can view what is actually happening.
Yeah, that is exactly how it will be. And also, as Tom says, it will be monitored on a quarterly basis.
Tom.
So there's just a little bit of teasing apart there in terms of what you would like Cabinet to do. So on the one hand, I think I'm hearing from Jan and others and in the room a sense of giving confidence around a 3-year arrangement, giving them confidence going forward. If you're bringing it back to Cabinet to actually approve the funding on an annual basis, then it doesn't necessarily give that greater confidence. If you would like to bring it back to Cabinet for an update or impact report from the CA, they're two slightly different things. So if you want an impact report from the CA on an annual basis, absolutely, and we can do that, whether it's to Cabinet or Council or an all-member briefing or whatever, or into Scrutiny Committee on an annual basis. Absolutely, I think that's something to be kind of applauded and would give visibility. If you're looking for Cabinet to make the decision on the funding on an annual basis, then you're back to an annual sign-off process.
I think scrutiny is the way for it to go, as you say. I don't necessarily think as a Cabinet, I just want to make sure that as an authority, we have that presentation and that whether it be scrutiny is the right way for it to go, that they have that so that they are sure and happy with everything is going forward.
Yes, I think we all would be happy with that. Certainly there needs to be some formal reporting back, and scrutiny does seem to be the best mechanism for that. Councillor McCraw, would you like to comment?
Just to add that, in fact, what Tom has been saying and what members have been saying is very closely allied to exactly what you'll be getting as an updated recommendation from the initially the Task and Finish group, which of course has dealt with this through 4 separate authorities, and then from our own scrutiny committee. Our recommendation to you as a cabinet and for everybody as a council will be that it be a rolling annual review subject to consideration of inflation. We think that fits the bill in terms of the needs. But the annual review, it's up to you to decide where that should take place, and I can see no objection to it going through scrutiny. That seems perfectly reasonable. By that time, we will have looked at the operations of CA across Suffolk, well, on a regular basis already. We've already got the experience now amongst ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor McCraw. Does anyone else? Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, I think scrutiny is the place for it to go. I think that it ought to be done every year after the accounts are available. I think it's quite useful to be able to have a look at the accounts here. And I think we ought to be encouraged by the fact that Great Cornwall Parish Council have increased their contributions, so have Sudbury Town Council, so have Hadley Town Council, and so have the other parish councils. That's actually quite encouraging. That a few £100 is nearly £1,000 now, because of course the surrounding villages, the residents there all benefit as well. So I think it's really encouraging that they're actually attracting contributions from sort of the wider community and not just relying on us and the county council. As far as the amount of money that we're putting in is concerned, over the 3 years and beyond, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of pounds. So I think this council should have some method by which it scrutinises the activities. So I don't need to propose it, I don't think, but I mean, at this time of year, it ought to go to scrutiny just so that they can have a look at it. So just going back to the recommendation, we are going to put in there now a rolling 3-year programme. Are we to make it absolutely clear that it's 3 years and it rolls forward? Yes. Okay.
That is, I think, everyone's desire for that. And of course, if there are any specific issues that scrutiny need Cabinet to resolve as a result of their annual review, then that can be the mechanism. They'll then pass it through to us. So if there are no more comments on this, may I have a proposer for the amended recommendation, please? Councillor Davis, seconder. Councillor Osborne. All those in favour? Thank you. Right. Moving on then, the next item is paper BCA 1926, the introduction of a Council Tax Penalties Policy. Although it's right that we offer council tax discounts for single residents and other exemptions and reductions, it is essential that our information is accurate and that we are informed by residents as soon as they are no longer eligible for this. The Shared Revenues Partnership undertakes a review so that we have up-to-date information and can pursue any shortfall in council tax resulting from a change in circumstances. Prompt notification of changes to circumstances allows our records to be updated so that we can issue revised notices to taxpayers. And a timely issue of revised council tax bills would also benefit the taxpayers by spreading any increased payments over a longer period. This will also have a benefit in assisting with council tax collections. The notification conditions are listed in paragraph 4.4 of the report. We are able to issue penalties in cases where the taxpayer has failed to notify us of a change, but currently none of the Shared Revenue Partnership partners does this. The single discount review costs up to £30,000 for the 2018 to 2019 financial year. The additional council tax revenue obtained by this was £69,000. The possibility of updating a penalty, of applying a penalty may further encourage customers to keep taxpayer details up to date, meaning that the tax base is as accurate as possible, which in turn could mean more council tax being paid. The penalty chargeable is £70 for the initial failure to notify, rising to £280 for each subsequent failure to respond to requests for updated information. It is estimated that for 2018-19, we could have achieved an additional revenue of £15,960, which is listed in paragraph 6.1 of the report, on the basis of the number of £70 fines we could have imposed. However, I must stress that the primary intention of this policy is for penalties to be used as a deterrent against fraud and error, and not as a regular source of income. Further information is provided in the report and its Appendix A, which contains the actual penalties policy. So I'd like to propose the recommendations at paragraph 3.1 of the report that councils approve the implementation of a policy for the issuing of council tax penalties, and the reason given that the Council is committed to a proactive approach in preventing and reducing the risks associated with fraud, error and other irregularities in the administration of council tax. Implementation of this policy supports this commitment. May I have a seconder? Councillor Osborne. Any questions, anyone? Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, I've got a question about whether this will cover the activity that I think perhaps all of us encountered when we were going around houses for last year's election. Certainly in my ward I came across it, where people have two homes. They have a holiday home and they have their main residence, and they put one person down in one of those properties and one person down in their holiday home. They do that for electoral purposes because they think that it ties up with council tax, and they benefit from a 25% discount on both of those properties rather than paying the full whack on one of them and a holiday home rate on the other. So they save quite a significant amount of money across two authorities by doing that. Will this help to control that?
Thank you, Councillor. May I ask Andrew Wilcott to see if there's any way we can tie up that the fact that people are registered in two different places?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor, I think these are the type of scenarios we are targeting. So as part of our discount review, we take all our records, compare them to financial credit records. We also compare them to other authorities' records, and these are the discrepancies that we then work through. So for last year, we compared 9,000 records, 1,700 came up as discrepancies. They're the 1,700 we then contact, and from that, I think it was just under 250 were removed. So we do liaise with other authorities. We will question the council taxpayer on to determine their main residence, and we will determine their main residence. So we do have classic cases where perhaps somebody has a property in London where they work in the week, but they return at a weekend, and they may argue London is their main home. We will argue actually the family home at the weekend is the main home, and we won't offer that discount. So they're the type of cases we are looking to target. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone else have any comment on this? I mean, it seems quite a sensible thing to do. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to ensure that we have up-to-date information and that we do get people to respond timely when their circumstances change. But this small amount of penalty, and it's not a significant amount, I think will help in improving the process. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the policy, number 5, exceptions, just something that we ought to be aware of. So I'd just be interested to know how the practicalities of implementing a fine would work. So if we identify that somebody might be receiving a fine and yet they fall into one of these exceptions categories, this seems to have the potential to be quite a bureaucratic exercise. So we've got the potential clients, for want of a better word, who are going to be sitting worrying about this fine. I mean, how long is this process going to take? Have you any idea to identify whether they fall into these categories and whether they're exempted or not?
Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. I think the first key point, in most of council tax records, all we have is a name and address. So unless they're in receipt of some type of benefit or a discount that identifies them as a particular category, we just have a name. So we may potentially have a situation where a penalty is levied because they haven't returned any information requested. It would then be, if they come back and appeal through conversations, engagement, we then identify actually they may meet one of these exceptions, then we would withdraw the discount. But unfortunately, data protection wise, we just have to have a name and know that they're over 18. So we could run into some challenges. However, talking to authorities that have implemented this elsewhere, they've had very few challenges, and even the Department of Work and Pensions offer a sanction for any overpayment, I think over £50, they then charge a penalty. So the feedback from elsewhere is it's not been that labour intensive.
And I think also, Councillor Parker, when we come on to the next item on the agenda, that might help with this particular issue. Does anyone else have anything they wish to ask? Okay then. We've had the recommendation proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. And moving on now, the next item is paper BCA 1927, Council Tax, the Citizens Advice Collection Protocol. So one of the core objectives of the Shared Revenues Partnership is to maximise the collection of council tax while ensuring the processes in place are fair and ethical. Level of council tax debt is increasing across the country, and this is described in paragraph 4.2 of the report. Charities are warning that these arrears now rival credit card debts as their biggest concern. Moreover, there are also stories in the press about warnings from charities that heavy-handed collection tactics are putting severe pressure on those already in financial difficulty. Citizens Advice have reported that growing numbers of people are turning to them for help with council tax issues. Citizens Advice, together with the Local Government Association, have produced a good practice protocol for the collection of council tax arrears. The protocol aims to help councils in England improve the experience for residents in arrears, whilst also improving collection of what is owed. This supports the government's desire to improve the way council tax debt is recovered. In the light of all this, the Shared Revenues Partnership has been engaging with the Citizens Advice to review the processes in place for collection and benchmark these against the standards set out in the protocol. By working closely together, the Council, its enforcement agents and Citizens Advice can improve collection processes with more early intervention to assist residents struggling with their council tax payments, to help prevent further charges, alleviate stress and reduce both collection costs and demand on public services in the districts. This report proposes that the Council adopt this protocol. Further information is provided in the report and Appendix A, which contains the Good Practice Protocol itself. So I'd like to propose the recommendation of paragraph 3.1 of the report, that is to approve the adoption of the Citizens Advice Council Tax Protocol detailed at Appendix A of the report. And the reason that the protocol reflects best practice at local government level and is intended to facilitate regular liaison with the Council, its enforcement agents and Citizens Advice on practices and policy concerning council tax collection. In setting down clear procedures and keeping these regularly under review, all parties to the protocol can ensure that arrears are dealt with appropriately whilst complaints are handled efficiently. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Osborne. Any questions or comments, anyone? Councillor Arthey.
I'll ask a question. It's about in the report it talks about how nationally the level of council tax debt is increasing. But I think I'm right in saying that although the figures are slightly different year on year, we have not seen a significant rise in council tax debt in recent years, have we?
It hasn't. I'll let Andrew give a detailed response, but I don't believe it has affected us, although universal credit we may be seeing an impact of that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, it's fair to say we've maintained our collection rate. It took a dip in 2013 with the introduction of the welfare reform changes, and we moved away from 100% council tax benefit scheme. But we are around sort of in-year collection of 98.4. We are facing some challenges this year because we have customers that have frequent changes to their benefit, either due to universal credit or sort of the hours they work changes. And what this is meaning, any change in benefit changes how much council tax they owe, which means we issue a new bill, and when we issue a new bill, we recalculate instalments. So we are seeing that this final quarter, compared to where we were last April, there's nearly £1 million more we've got to collect. So we are doing more activity to try and maintain that rate. And obviously the key thing for us is to identify the can't pays from the won't pays. So sort of the protocol is helping us deal with sort of the can't pays and how we can support them sort of going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Councillor Arthey.
Yeah, and another question as well. Obviously, this and the previous paper as well, because we're in the shared revenues partnership, it is quite important, although we're agreeing this as a council, it's quite important that everybody else does as well, isn't it? Otherwise, you end up with sort of, you know, different rules applying to different authorities being operated by one group.
Andrew, yeah, I think that is the case, but the other authorities, I think, are all pretty on board with this, aren't they? Yes, I was aware of Mid Suffolk, but I didn't. Ipswich have agreed as well, have they? Oh, was it? Okay, thanks. Any other comments, anyone? Right, well, you've had the recommendation proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Thank you. The next and last item is BCA 1928, and these are decisions taken by the Chief Executive during the pre-election period under delegated powers in accordance with Part 2 of the Constitution. And may I ask Councillor Osborne to introduce this.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. The Chief Executive has made a decision in conjunction with the Chairperson of the Council under their delegated powers whilst the Council was in the pre-election period. The Regulatory Reform Housing Assistance, England and Wales Order 2002, gives local authorities the power to develop their own policy to assist their residents to maintain and adapt their homes to ensure that they are safe and suitable for them to live in. The Housing Assistance Policy has been developed to allow Babergh and Mid Suffolk District Councils to make best use of their Disabled Facilities Grant funding. This will enable the councils to meet their strategic priorities and to work with health and social care colleagues to provide better outcomes for residents. The Housing Assistance Policy, known as HAP, sets out how Babergh and Mid Suffolk District Councils will offer assistance to disabled residents to improve accessibility to and suitability of their accommodation. The HAP allows Babergh and Mid Suffolk councils to meet the aspirations set out in their corporate plan and homes and housing strategy to ensure that everyone has a suitable home and residents are able to live as healthily, safely, independently as possible with sustainable communities. The key objectives of the Housing Assistance Policy are to ensure residents are able to live as healthily, safely and independently as possible, to help prevent hospital, care home and residential home admissions, to facilitate the prompt discharge of residents from hospital, to prevent the need for increased expenditure elsewhere in the Suffolk system, including health and social care. The main changes include increasing the MAG's non-means tested to 7,500 from the current 5,000, introduction of a 10k discretionary DFG to top up the 30k mandatory DFG, total of 40k, and relocation grant of up to 7,500 non-means tested. The policy has now been implemented and will be carefully monitored to measure the success of introducing additional options to try and reduce the DFG underspend. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. Anyone have any questions on this? It's Councillor Arthey.
The question on this one as well. I'm just trying to be absolutely clear about what the Chief Executive agreed. Did he agree the policy or did he agree the awards? Because the financial implications given here are quarterly figures for awards. So I'm presuming that that's just for information only and that what the Chief Executive actually approved was the policy. Is that right?
Councillor Osborne.
Yes. Simple answer.
Thank you. So just following on from that, it would have been nice if we'd got the policy here approved attached. Would have been a nice touch.
Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, we can forward that on, Heather, no problem.
Councillor Osborne, yeah?
Can I just add to this? We are going out to the various partners to sort of advertise the availability of this grant, but we need it to be taken up, and members play a key role in this. You know, you're out there hands-on, so if all members can get out there and be aware of the availability of this grant, that would, I'm sure, would increase the take-up of it and help their residents to live safely and independently.
And we certainly need to report it to our parish and town councils so that they can help disseminate the information as well.
Yeah, if they could include it in their district council reports. I always do in mine at the town council, so if we could all do that, that would be fantastic.
Councillor Arthey.
I'm sure we can all do that, and that's another reason why it would be nice to have the policy the Chief Executive approved that we can look at.
You will get it. Okay, are there any other questions? Right.
Can I just
Councillor
add to
yes?
that? Yeah, we will circulate the policy, but as I've identified in my introduction, the three main changes include, and that's really basically what we're doing, but we will get the policy out. So.
Okay, well, Councillor Osborne has proposed a recommendation. I haven't asked the first. Oh.
So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to propose the recommendation outlined in 2.1 of the report, and it is for noting.
And may I have a seconder? Councillor Davis. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Right. That concludes the meeting, actually. The next meeting is next Thursday, 5:30, where we'll be taking a first look at the draft budget. And I'll see you all then. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.